Hello and welcome to Tables of Content. Pull up a seat, join us. We have room for everyone. My name is Darren M. Bush. I'm the founder and executive producer of Tables of Content. You've joined us today for a Zeroversary movie watch party. This is part one of Don't Click Accept, the before panel. And let everybody know that this panel is a little bit unusual because what you might be expecting are people who are experienced panelists or those sorts of things that we usually have with these things. But this panel is a little different. So what we're looking at is a group of people who work in information technology. Now, for reasons, we're not going to talk about what company we all met at and worked for. But the idea is that these are four people who have experience with computers. And what we're going to talk about on these two panels is some movies that have anniversaries this year where they have, we think, really screwed up the technology and the computers, and we're going to talk about that in this panel. We're going to talk about that in the after panel after we've watched the movies. What I want to know is at this point, just give us your name, what you want us to call you, and also your relationship with computers and technology. Matt, let's try that again.
Well, my name is Matt. I've been working in IT for 15 years now. Wow, I'm getting old. Oh my goodness. Uh, yeah, I'm a big movie fan, big IT fan, and I don't really know what else to say other than that.
So what do you do currently in the technology field?
I am a jack of all trades. You call me with if it's broken, and I figure out how to fix it, and if I don't, I send it to this guy. This guy.
Okay, excellent. All right, John, your turn. Introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Yes, my name is Johnny. Well, most people call me that. At work, I am John. My business kind of professional name. Been on IT now for close to probably 25 years. Same company for 21. It's kind of the same thing, jack of all trades. If you can't fix it, I hope to. If it's fixed, I find a way to break it.
Okay, that works. Excellent. And our fourth but not final panelist, Eric, introduce yourself. Let us know what your relationship is with computers these days.
Hi, I'm Eric. I've been in IT for probably about 15 years as well. Um, Basically, I'm a jack of all trades as well. Whatever needs to be done, whether it be building equipment, fixing equipment, medical IT, other IT, really doesn't make a difference to me.
Okay, excellent. And just to be a completist, I've been working in IT support officially for just forever, for decades. And my specialty is taking all this weird computerese and technical jargon and turning it into English so that people can actually use these things. It doesn't matter how fancy the developers or the engineers are. If people don't get how to use it, then that's where I come in. Often. So we are going to be talking about three movies that have anniversaries that end in zero this year. That's what a zeroversary is for those of you who are trying to look that up in the dictionary. It's not in there yet, but I'm working on it. And so let's just do this. What I want to do is jump into the basics of how the zeroversary movie watch panel works, and then we will get into the actual movies themselves. So the first thing to know is that funny little story here is that when I was looking at the movies that we had worked out, usually I pick the movies, but this time Matt was so enthusiastic about the topic that I went ahead and delegated that to him. He had a lot of fun picking the movies. Everyone needs to be sympathetic. He's been waiting, has it been weeks or months, Matt, to watch these movies after we decided what they were.
God, I have them all sitting right here
Right.
off the
So it's
side of
been
the
months
camera,
at this
just
point.
staring me in the eye. Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
at least a
So
month now.
so that's my fault is I didn't realize that when I released The Hound that he would be sitting there going, can I watch these movies now? I'm like, no, hold on, wait, one more week. So what I did was when I was looking at these movies, I was thinking about the terms of service agreements, and that's where the title Don't Click Accept came from. And I was thinking about all those 7,000 word white papers that no one ever reads,
Yeah.
that you just go to the bottom and you go, if I push this button, can I have my software or my phone or whatever now? And we do. And then here's where it gets weird. Even for us IT people, even we get confused sometimes. I sent out the invitations to these three fine IT gentlemen. And at the top of the subject of the invite was, here's the invite, don't click accept. and some of you have already figured out where this is going. None of them accepted the invitation, and I got communications from them going, why should we, can I accept, what's this thing about not accepting the invite? And I went, oh, okay, that was just beautifully stupid. It was fabulous. So those of you who aren't IT people, you can now pause the video, laugh, and point and go, haha, Darren screwed up, because yeah, I did. That was a pretty good goof. So what I want to do is I want to also let you guys know what we're going to be doing here for this hour and for the next hour, which is the after panel, which will come out later. What's going to happen is we're going to talk about these 3 movies that Matt has picked out that have Zeroversaries this year, that have really bad computer stuff in them. And then the 4 of us are going to go off and watch those 3 movies. And we're going to come back later and we're going to record another after panel and talk about how we have changed our opinions or how we respond to these movies that we've watched. And I promise I will tell you which movies these are in just a minute. Before we do that, I want to say one last thing about the movies themselves, which is I know that not everyone will own all of these movies, but I promise you that when we pick these, I check and make sure they're at least available on YouTube for rental. So if you are going to play along with us, and that's really the point, is we want you to play along and then watch the after panel when it's ready. And so really at this point, I'm asking you to spend about $12. And I think that's reasonable given the topic, the amount of very strange, silly complaining we're about to do about these 3 movies, and the expectation of the enjoyment of this stuff. So let me go back and ask our panelists one more question that I missed. You could tell we rehearsed, right? This is all scripted and rehearsed. You can totally. We got one more question that I did miss, and then we will get into the actual movies. And it goes like this. We've talked about your relationship with computers and IT. What is your relationship with fandom? And in this context, the term, what I'm asking is, are you a science fiction fan? How do you feel about science fiction movies and things like that? And just to set the tone and to trap you guys, I will go ahead and say I actually collect science fiction movies. I have my wife and I have gotten into the habit of picking up science fiction movies, especially bad ones. We love bad science fiction movies. And I have been a nerd and a geek ever since I was a little kid. The story I tell all the time is that when I was like 7, my mother, who had it, if you know me, you know what that means, set me down in front of Star Trek and said, here, watch this really awesome Star Trek for an hour, and then got a break. Because an hour later I went, is there more of this? Is there? And it never stopped. So all right, this time I'm going to pick on Johnny first. Johnny, what's your feelings about you being a science fiction fan, essentially?
Well, let's put it this way. The first movie I saw growing up, and is still my favorite to this day, is Tron. I remember the white Disney VCR, VHS packaging.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we went when we had to go and rent videos, I always, for some reason, just kept grabbing that one. So when it came out on DVD, it was mind-blowing because I didn't wear it out. I didn't break the tape, watch it over. I love just about anything science fiction for the most part, anything with tech. I don't memorize things like some can. I don't get that far with it. Yeah, I'll watch things often enough, and even if I watch 1,000 times, sometimes I just don't pick up on some of the names and everything, but I remember the movies and mainly stick to, I mean, if I had to pick one, anything with technology and computers in it. And I mean, even shows now, there's that show on Amazon where guy what's called Upload, where the guy's in a virtual reality world, like stuff like that. It always intrigued me. So sometimes you watch it and you wonder how close we are to it. And then probably like these movies, we're going to watch it and see how they butchered it and really tortured the topic. But I basically consider myself like an all-around, but just about anything in the genre.
Excellent. Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate that. Eric, how about you?
I'm going to get a lot of hate for this.
Uh-oh, here it goes.
I'm not really a sci-fi fan. I do have one movie that I remember vividly. I was homesick one day from school and just happened to see it on Netflix. I think it was Netflix. I think it was called Countdown to Destruction. and it was about an aircraft carrier that goes back in time to help stop World War II.
Yes.
And it was the craziest piece of something or other that I had seen up until that point, and it stuck with me because it was so horrible.
Final Countdown, I think is what.
Final Countdown, yes.
Yeah. Yes. You talk about a C movie. Yep.
So that's it'll be a pleasant surprise if I enjoy any of these.
So yeah, so that's.
I had to think about that for a second.
For those of you going, oh no, go ahead, Johnny. Go ahead.
You said C movie. He said aircraft carrier. I'm wondering, are you talking about the C or C?
Or a CV?
Har.
A, B, C.
I mean, as the one person that knows how old all of you are, there's no way that when you were still in school that Netflix was digital yet. So, just saying.
So I think I still found my blog.
I picked it from the catalog and had it mailed to me.
I still have my Blockbuster card somewhere.
Okay, yeah, the fact that I worked for Blockbuster for 2 years is not part of my street cred for this particular panel, although maybe it is now. For those of you in the audience who are sitting there going, doesn't Darren screen these people? No. Why? That's boring. Why would I? No, I don't want everybody to agree with me. Matt, how about you, since you opened your mouth? What's your relationship with science fiction entertainment?
I'll just start by saying, as the only one here who was not alive when Tron actually came out. No, I'm more of a sci-fi fantasy is probably my favorite genre, but I'm just more of a movie buff in general. I pretty much just watch anything and everything that I can. You know, I've gotten to a point in my life now where I'm just living off of the Netflix, pick something for me button. Because there's just nothing left. There's just nothing left. I'm the guy who would watch Mystery Science Theater and stop watching it 10 minutes in because I would just want to go find that movie so these guys would stop talking over the top of it.
Okay. All right, good. So we're putting Matt, we're filing Matt under young whippersnapper. We're going to put him in that category. So I have stacked the deck. This is going to be an uphill climb, and I'm loving every minute of it. All right, so we are running a tiny bit behind schedule, but that's okay, because what I want to do is jump right into the first movie. We're basically going to talk about each of these movies for about 15 minutes. And if you haven't seen the movie and don't know anything, that's fine. We'll make up for it in the after panel after we've watched it. Our first The Computers Are Worrisome movie on this list is Resident Evil, which came out in 2002. So it is 20 years old this year. For those of you who are wondering if I'm talking about the video game, no, I'm talking about the movie that was made from the video game. I actually have this one on the shelf. And for those of you who played the video game Resident Evil, the movie actually was an interesting adaptation, but we'll talk about that separately. So the first thing I want to ask is, show of hands, who has watched Resident Evil from 2002? Okay, right. That's actually what I would have predicted. So that's fine. So Matt, when was the last time you saw Resident Evil?
Oh my God. What is that? I mean, it would have to be like 2012-ish. I mean, they've made so many of them at this point that going back to the first one, it's been a long time.
Oh yeah. It is there. I think they're up to the 6th or 7th one. I have lost track.
It's one of those franchises where I feel like they keep coming out with titles like Resident Evil, the last one, Resident Evil, it's the end, and then somehow there's just another one and another one.
Yeah, what we're waiting for is Resident Evil, the money grab.
Sounds a lot like all those Halloween movies where they just keep coming out and coming out and coming out.
Yeah, there's an 8th Tremors movie coming out, and so on one of the Tremors panels, I was like, I don't know who's bankrolling them, but somebody's thinking that they're worth making, so they keep going.
What is it? What are we up to? So I think someone told me there's like 4 Batman movies coming out this year or something with 4 different actors or something to that effect.
What?
Yeah, there's like 4 different people who are going to be playing Batman in the year 2022.
Okay,
whether animated or live action.
Well, listen, they've made 10 Fast and the Furious movies, including gliding on ice with submarines and rockets. So at this point, until they hit number 10, Resident Evil still sounds like a live franchise.
Yeah, it's still right. It's the undead franchise. So Matt, are you excited to watch this one again?
Oh, I am. I've had to fight not to queue it up on net. I think I saw it sitting on Netflix or one of the 20 streaming services I have nowadays.
I think one of my Amazon Fire Sticks heard me talking about this panel and keeps telling me that Resident Evil is available to watch anytime I want.
So you just saved us $3. You just saved us $3 then, is what you're saying.
Well, so yes, so this would probably be a good time to say that I was going to build into these panels kind of an explanation of where you can find them, but there are so many streaming services there's no point. I know that not everyone has Paramount and Disney and Netflix and just if you've got it, if you can find it, great. If you can't find it, we wouldn't have put this movie on the list if it weren't available on YouTube for rental for a reasonable price. So yeah, so it's like a $3.99 rental on YouTube, but I know that it's on other services too. But just it's a whole panel in and of itself just to explain where to find these 3 movies and give you all those options. So we just gave up on that very early in the process.
Is this the type of movie that would be at the gasoline station next to the certs and the gum on sale?
We're getting to that movie.
I would think so. Oh yeah, no, we're gonna hit that movie, but I would think so. I mean, this is Mila Jovovich. And speaking of Fast and Furious, Michelle Rodriguez gets to be on the cover. I love Michelle Rodriguez. She's awesome. But this is a movie where, like, this is a hard sell to people who aren't science fiction or bad movie fans. Like, I would never make my mom watch this. I would never go like, Mom, this is based on a game we used to play when we were not kids, but younger. And no, it's not one of those movies. This is also the moment where I should say we're not endorsing these movies. We're just saying we're going to endure them. And also, some of these movies might be R-rated, so it's not like I'm sitting there going, yeah, if you got a 7-year-old who likes dogs, go watch Resident Evil and see the undead Doberman Pinschers. No. Please don't.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, there are undead dogs. Well, there's a Doberman Pinscher on the cover, and I love Doberman, so that's another thing about that that's another plus for me in the movie is there are Dobermans in the movie. That always gets me an extra star in my review. So, all right, Eric, I'm gonna bug you now. Do you even remember this film from 20 years ago?
I remember when it came out. I really don't know anything else about it.
Okay,
I remember the game a little bit because my brother was not a fan of it when we used to hang out with people that were playing it. But I don't.
Were you a fan of the game?
No.
Okay. Did anybody besides me actually like the game?
It's kind of zombie-esque, right?
It's very zombie-esque.
Yeah,
it is. It's another one of those zombie It's a survival horror zombie apocalypse game.
Yeah, it was never one of my genres that I ever really played, but I remember it. Of course, I remember it.
I said that was a PlayStation originally, wasn't it?
I
don't think it was
multi-platform. I don't think originally.
I don't think it was multi-platform, and PlayStation was the one system I never owned.
I don't think it was cartridge based at the time.
Well, the thing about the game that's worth mentioning here, especially because there might be a couple of fans watching this, is that Resident Evil did this thing that I jokingly referred to as second-person shooter, right? Everybody's familiar with first-person shooter. A second-person shooter is, the reason I jokingly call it that is because they intentionally put the camera in really weird places. Like, part of the puzzle of the game was, I can't see myself on screen. Where am I? Oh, I'm around the corner, but the camera is at the end of the hall. So you actually have to walk blindly out into the hallway, not being able to see yourself, so that the dogs can then attack you, so you can shoot them, and then you walk under the camera, and you go to the next area, next room, or whatever it was. So Resident Evil they invented some really interesting stuff for that, for what could have been just a stand there and shoot zombies in the face with a shotgun game. So when the movie was being made, there was an audience because it was a hugely successful game. In fact, it still is. They're remaking the Resident Evil series now. I think they're up to the 3rd or 4th new one. So there was definitely an audience for this movie. And I thought, my memory of the movie, I think the last time I saw it was maybe 5-6 years ago. My wife really digs these movies. I'm not sure exactly why, but okay, great. And we're watching it, like I said, 5-6 years ago. And I remember going, oh yeah, right. This is this thing from the game. That's that thing from the game. This is a good adaptation of the game. So it's one of those. It's one of those movies. Okay. Well, I am going to anything else, Matt, about your memory of this movie? Anything else?
Oh, I probably remember all of it.
Probably remember all of it.
To be completely fair, so I won't throw too many spoilers out there for those of you that haven't.
Yeah,
Just
no,
out of
it's a
curiosity,
20-year-old movie. No spoilers.
since it's at the before panel and we're blind to it. So what did you think? Your early version, your early thoughts between what the movie was like and what the game was like. Did it fit in your eyes together? You know how sometimes they make one, they make the other, and you look and you go, had nothing to do with each other.
This was the one thing where, you know, that's always the thing we always talk about is, you know, good video games being turned into really bad movies. I mean, I'm sure we could think of plenty of examples. I mean, Resident Evil was, as far as video game adaptations and movies go, it was actually a good one, and probably one of the first video game movies to not just be in title only, that actually had some form of mainstream success. I mean, I'm sure there were others, but this was the one that was probably the only one that actually stuck to it, you know, unlike, what was it, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Doom, and, you know, however many countless others there were out there.
Yeah. Doom was really kind of a standout because they went so far as to have I think it was a 6 or 7 minute bit where it was from the point of view of Carl Urban, who was like the last human standing. So they did the first person shooter from the game bit in the movie. And I played the game when it first came out, and I loved that bit in the movie, and tons of people hated it. Tons of people hated that movie. But Resident Evil, to answer your question, Johnny, I thought they did a really good job of turning the game into a movie rather than just filming a video game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you just know there's always, like you said, they take the title, they butcher a video, they try to box it up, they send it out, it's horrible, people hate it. If you at least give it some thought and at least, you know, show you tried.
Yeah, I mean, what's the others I can think of off the top of my head? Street Fighter, that was terrible. Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat had a certain charm to it.
Yeah, I'd like the first one to me had a feel to it. The second, the original second, the original first. I thought they released the second one. They changed some character, you know, actors around, and it lost everything. It just didn't feel.
One of the or was it John Leguizamo, Super Mario Brothers?
Oh,
with the Koopas with the tiny little heads. And
so before we got about a minute left on this one, and before we get too far off topic, I do want to say really quickly that we're going to need to watch the movie to really comment on the artificial intelligence, which is really bizarre in this movie. That's one thing I do remember, is that the movie really took a lot of liberties with what artificial intelligence means and what it could possibly do. It's been years, so I don't remember the details, but we will definitely come back to the conversation about they really did not even try to figure out how computers work and how artificial intelligence works and what it might turn into. There's a moment in the film, if I remember correctly, where I'm going, are they trying to imitate 2001: A Space Odyssey? Because they're not pulling it off. So, okay, any parting shots on Resident Evil, the 20th anniversary of Resident Evil, before we move to the second film? Okay, great. So let's do that. Let's talk about our second movie, which is, and I gotta say, it's been a while since I've been dreading a movie this much. It's The Lawnmower Man from 1992, the 30th anniversary of Lawnmower Man. Which does anybody besides me want to explain what this film is? Matt put his hand up, but hold on, Johnny, do you want to give a synopsis to our audience of this film?
Just a really bad take on virtual reality. And then
that
works. That sounds like an Ebert quote. Matt, you had your hand up. I'm going to let you. What did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, I mean that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Obviously, not to be confused with Stephen King short story who sued them for the title. But
see, now I was just about to say it was an adaptation of a King story, but
it's in title only.
In title only.
The Stephen King short story was like a lawnmower that like came to life and would like had to have a sacrifice of human flesh to do stuff. I don't know. It's very. I've read it. It's been a long time. No, title only.
Okay. All right.
So King gets credited on the movie only because they straight up just took his title word for word.
Speaking of lawyers, Eric, what were you saying?
It's like the prequel to Transformers, Lawnmower Man.
Yeah. Optimus Prime and his buddy kicks grass who's only about 2 feet tall because he's a Ryobi lawnmower who transforms. It's funny you say that because what I was thinking was that Stephen King had a movie called Maximum Overdrive, and I'm wondering if Maximum Overdrive was the movie that they made from that short story because of the movie Lawnmower Man. It gets very complicated in there very quickly. All right, so show of hands. Let's go back to this. Who has seen Lawnmower Man? Okay, I got 3 hands on that one. All right, okay. So
my favorite part about it, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you see it the same way, is to see a movie where the actor has reached a certain pinnacle today. Where I look at Pierce Brosnan, James Bond, you know, he's made it to the top, the cream of the crop of movies, and he also made this.
That's what I was trying to find right now, is how early in his career this was, because there's no way he was that big of an actor at the time.
it was
If I
probably
recall-
after Remington Steele, right? But it was
Oh, yeah.
before
Well,
we
it's
started
funny.
talking about him being Bond.
It's funny. I just rewatched all the James Bonds and watched some documentaries, and he was supposed to be the next one after Roger Moore, but it failed. The contract dispute with Remington Steele. They actually decided to make a 5th season. He wanted out. He missed it, and he made a bunch of movies after that. I think this may have been one of them. Then he got the role after Timothy Dalton backed out.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
That's
it's not
it.
even listed on his IMDb. That's how proud he is of this movie.
Oh, I didn't know that was an option. That
It
must
looks
be nice.
Yeah, it looks like it's not even listed. It should be right here with Play for Today, one episode of a TV series.
So Johnny, when was the last time you saw Lawnmower Man?
Oh my God, it's been years. I mean, we're talking probably early 2000 or so. I don't remember exactly what year it came out, but it was probably not too far after that.
Matt, what about you? When was the last time you saw it?
Probably
Oh,
after
sorry,
I bought
Johnny, go ahead.
I probably bought the DVD, watched it 3 times, and never touched it again.
Oh, 3. You watched it 3 times. Wow.
At least.
A masochist. Matt, when's the last time you saw Lawnmower Man?
So this is one of those movies that I feel like I remember very fondly, but it's probably going to be one of the worst things I've ever seen once we get down to it, you know, now like 20 something years later. I think I saw this on a VHS tape at a friend's house during a sleepover when I was like 9.
That makes sense.
Maybe 10.
The last time I saw it, I think, was the first time I saw it, because this is about, no, I think I've seen it once. I think I saw it on VHS. This is about the time it came out, like just after my stint at Blockbuster. So I might have rented it, or I might have I might have watched it on TBS or something like that. But I have not seen it in forever. It might be 28 or 27 years since I've seen it. Actually sat and watched it.
No.
Yeah.
Came out in 1992 when I graduated high school. So it was on VHS that I had it. I must have.
VHS soon after. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so of the 3 of us that have already seen it, is anybody excited to see it again?
I am. I'm not gonna lie.
Matt,
I can see the horror in your faces, but this is right up my alley. This is just pure dumb fun.
I will say yes, as long as we don't have to watch the second one.
There's a second one?
There was a second, and I think possibly a third.
There was a second one. My meds are kicking in, and I remember the second one. The so
if we don't have to watch that one, I'll be happy.
No, I'm not. Even I wouldn't ask you to watch the second Lawnmower Man. At least not.
Yes, you would.
Yes, I would. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, I would. Very good. All right. So Eric, since I'm gonna pick on you because you haven't seen it. What do you remember about this movie, having not seen it? Anything?
No.
No, that's okay. I mean, that's kind of the point here. Is these can't all be Jurassic Park 2, you know? So
I've never heard of this one.
Never heard of it? Okay, well there
Nope.
you go. Then their marketing campaign was successful to the general public. I was already a big computer nerd in '92. When the movie came out, I thought I was told it was based on a Stephen King story. I'm a Stephen King fan. I got very excited, and then I watched it and I went, "What the? Oh boy. Okay, no." I remember really not liking it at all. So Matt, you guys get to poke fun at me for making me watch a movie I don't want to watch.
You have to remember when it came out, though, because I remember I started college, community college, but still, 93.
That counts.
And it was probably around 94 or 95 when we was in the one main room and they set up 2 pods, and they gave you like 10 minutes. They gave everybody 10 minutes, and you actually got to go stand on this pod and virtual reality. You got to kind of move around with the big headset and everything, and move around. And you had to get across to the other side, and that was revolutionary. Now you got it on your phone. You have AR where you can basically, see what your room will look like with all different furniture. And back then we didn't have that, so this was all new. So the movie, in the beginning at least, kind of had you like, wow, that's really interesting. And then when you see what they do with it, you kind of, I don't know, lose your belief or whatever. But it was at least interesting. It was topical at the time. That's what you have to remember. That was very, very topical for the day. It was kind of ahead of its time.
I mean, we could easily do a panel on how movies about technology innovations, by definition, don't age well. Like this movie does not age well as far as the technology goes, but that's no excuse for it being a movie that everything else doesn't age well either, at least in my opinion. So it is interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say it had. I think VR for the day had great potential. The problem is, I think it was so big and so beefy. Like the systems required to run it were just astronomical. No one could afford it in their house.
Yeah.
So it kind of died real quick and didn't really go anywhere. It's not like I don't know, pick something smaller, where you can box it up and everybody can get it. Like VR now, you can play it on your PlayStation, on your Xbox. It's now powerful enough to do today what they tried to do 30 years ago. Is now the Oculus. They brought it into the house finally 30 years later from where it was introduced. So it shows you how difficult of a technology it is to replicate in a everyday environment. You
and
could
it's still not
no,
and it's still not super affordable for everybody yet.
Right.
It's still a super expensive piece of equipment if you do decide to get a good headset.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, we're talking about like the Nintendo Virtual Boy of like VR movies here.
Yeah. So Eric, I'm going to put you on the spot, Eric, because I know you are a 3D printer enthusiast, of which I am a wannabe. Convincing my wife to let me.
Flames.
Yeah, that's why the house is on fire, right? So I'm still having trouble convincing the wife that it would pay for itself ever, let alone as soon as I think it will. So Eric and I have talked about 3D printing before. That's why I'm poking this. Is like if I could have found a science fiction movie where the premise was 3D printing, I would have included it for you, Eric, because I knew you'd like that. But this is a similar kind of conversation to the VR from Lawnmower Man, which is there was a point especially in Michael Crichton's books, and I don't know if it was hinted at in his movies or not, where they were talking about, we've got this thing where it'll 3D print. And I wish I could think of a movie where 3D printing was kind of a key technology for the science fiction part of it. And then now we look back at that and we go, oh, isn't that cute? It's so quaint. It's so quaint. Because I know for a fact, how many 3D printers have you got, Eric?
Right now, 2.
2? And like, as far as I could tell, they're reasonable, they're affordable. It's not a cheap hobby at all. It still has costs. You got to buy the products and you got to maintain the equipment and everything. But I think that it would be really interesting and again, I wish I could think of an example of a movie from like 15 years ago where 3D printing is going to save the world. And, oh gosh, let's not let the bad guys use this 3D printing to kill us all. And looking back on that, I bet those 3D printers are just amusing and just ridiculous.
That's kind of what's happening now. Some groups that you talk to, it's like you kind of wish some of those people didn't have the ability to use a 3D printer because of the things that they're printing. But I think a few years in the future, we'll still be able to have that conversation about today.
Yeah. So this is, thank you. And the reason I bring that up is because virtual reality is only one thing on a long list of technologies that have not aged well in film. That's kind of the reason why I gathered this group together, is because we know better than the general audience does what computers really need to do in order to work and function and thrive. And we'll get into more of that in the after panel, especially when we go back to talking about artificial intelligence. But I just wanted to clarify that this is I have had people, when I was doing IT support, I've had people say to me, well, what about this thing? And I go, look, I hate to be that guy, but that's from a movie. Computers don't do that. So I'm hoping we'll get into some of that with these three movies. All right. Any parting shots on The Lawnmower Man being 30 years old this year? Other than I promise my Ryobi is not sentient. My lawnmower is not sentient. All right, good. What, Johnny, say again?
Just shocked it's been so long.
Oh yeah, there is that too. There is that too. Except for young blood over here. All right, so let's get into our third and final. What the heck is going on with the computers in this movie? And it is okay. Everybody brace. It's the 40th anniversary of Tron. Tron came out in 1982. There it is. I have to tell you, Johnny, I've been practicing my poker face. Every time you talk about how much you like Tron, I go, okay, yeah, there it is. Jeff Bridges'.
The Bridges.
Okay, so show of hands, other than Johnny, who's seen the movie Tron? I'm talking about the Disney from 40 years ago. All right, good. All four of us. Excellent. That's a good one. So when was the last
It was stuck in the he lost it in the fire.
Stuck in the fire.
I counted elbows. Not fingers. Okay, so Johnny, when was the last time you saw Tron?
Almost a month or two ago.
Okay, good. Matt, how about you?
Nah.
We'll come back to you, Johnny.
Probably not super long. I mean, it's been years, but I'd probably seen it within the last 5 years or so.
Okay. Eric, how about you? When's the last time you saw this one?
Right before the second one came out. I wanted to watch the original before I watched the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it's not something that I would go back and watch multiple times just because sci-fi is not really like my preferred genre.
No, understood. But we're gonna ask you to watch it one more time for posterity's sake. Okay, so when was the first time you saw it? Anybody? Johnny?
Yeah, I was probably came out in 82, so
82?
So I was probably 8 or 9. I was right around there. So I mean, you have to understand with me, it's a movie that I watched growing up, and it's kind of like I don't want to call it a safety movie, but when you're kind of feeling a little, it's a movie put on in the background. I usually, just in a blah mood, it usually just kind of gets me by, and so I watch it frequently. I do. I'm a big Jeff Bridges fan, and that movie it's a childhood movie. So, some people that have that favorite cartoon that they watch or whatever, this is mine. So, it's something I'll pull up from time to time.
Okay.
Nostalgia.
All right, so I'm going to very quickly jump on with what Johnny just said. I saw it in the theater when it came out in 82. I was in high school, and it was such a great theater movie. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I don't know if I went back to the theater a second time, but I probably did because it really is amazing in the theater, especially 40 years ago. Matt, how about you? When you weren't born yet, you said earlier, but when was the first time you saw this?
I was -4 when this movie came out.
Yeah, thanks. Just keep rubbing that in.
But I mean, it says something to the movie, though, right? I mean, this movie came out 4 years before I was born, and I don't remember this as like, some movie my dad made me watch that was, in black and white and grainy picture. Like, this is a movie that I actually remember watching almost as if it had been something I'd seen in the theaters. In fact, I think I have, but that was 15, 20 years after the movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, this was probably pretty close to one of the first, if not the first, sci-fi movie I ever saw and can remember, right up there with like A New Hope or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That and probably the first video game-esque movie that I can think of.
Oh yeah. There's a whole conversation there about the relationship between the arcade games, not the video games, the arcade games,
right,
and this movie. Eric, what about you? Do you remember when the first time was that you saw it?
It was right before the second one came out.
Oh yeah, that's right. You said that. Sorry, I forgot that I asked that. Yeah, and I did too. I went back when Tron Legacy came out. I had to go back and watch the first one again. I just wanted to make sure I got the context and the transition, which we could talk about what that means later. But are like, I'm excited to see it again. I'm excited to have an excuse to watch it again. I'm pretty sure that Johnny is. Matt, Eric, I think we heard Eric's answer already. Matt, are you excited to see it again?
Oh yeah, this was the one I didn't have to buy. I already had this one sitting on the shelf.
Excellent. Yeah, we're gonna make Eric watch this one. He's gonna at least participate. No.
The thing I'm looking forward to is in my head I've still got a few things that my brain seems to be confusing with Tron Legacy because I haven't seen either one in so long, and even though the graphics are night and day different, like I've got it a little jumbled up in my head. So I'm looking forward to kind of straightening out some of the running dialogue I got going on right now.
So when it comes,
well,
I'll just say when it comes to this movie, I've become obsessive over it. I just love the movie. Went to Disney. I got the Tron bracelet for the rides. To me, it's the one Disney movie that they dropped. They dropped the ball on. They had potential with it. You have to understand at the time when it came out, computers were just kind of starting to really become mainstream and in the home, and gaming was all new. This was all fresh. And they didn't have, I've watched a documentary on it, so I can't tell you how many times, they didn't have the technology to make this movie. And if you go back and watch it now with, if you look at it, none of the, almost none of it could have happened back then. They had to develop the systems or go to the people who can develop the systems to make it. A lot of this was done by hand with sound stages, and they developed kind of new technologies to do it. So if you think about the challenges of making a movie like this back then, in a field that you don't know how it's going to take, right? So you went from the 70s, which were mostly like Westerns. Then all of a sudden Star Wars came in, and now you're starting to get into high tech, sci-fi, Star Trek, World of Tomorrow type of thing. And then this movie, it was all fresh. It was all new. Now we look at it and we go, oh, it's cheesy. It's horrible graphics. But when if you ever see the documentary, you see what they actually had to go through just to make this movie. It's shocking that it even got made.
Yeah, it really is. The point of this panel is not that these computer-based movies don't age well. We know they're not going to age well. They're computer-based. They have computer graphics in them that, just like my little camera here is more powerful than some of the cameras they used to make some of these movies. The point of this will become, what were they fudging within the story that involved computer systems? Because we know that Tron is, for a lot of people, not just Disney fans, but also science fiction fans, Tron is a delightful, important milestone in making science fiction movies, but nobody says that the graphics have stood up over the decades. Nobody goes there. At least I don't know anybody who goes there. So there's this conversation about something I love the documentaries about the making of Tron, because they did some really amazing stuff. Given what they had in the early 80s to work with, the technology was not available. They went above and beyond the technology, and it's really an impressive achievement. I really do think this movie is something that if you're a collector of any kind of film, you really have to have this one. Even if you're sitting there going, well, the outfits are a little, and the graphics are a little dated, I don't care. It is an achievement. It's really a good movie in that sense of what they were able to do, not what they did, but what they were able to do versus what was available. Matt, what about you? When did you buy this one, Matt? How long have you owned this one?
Oh, as far as, oh God, I mean, that DVD's got some dust on it. I pulled it from the basement, so it's
there. We go. That answers the question. That's the question.
But I mean, you could. In fairness to all these movies, like the one thing I noticed just when trying to find these things was, I mean, until you hit like the 2000s, there really wasn't, the sci-fi genre really wasn't this big movie genre. So everything was really, and you kind of see that in Tron. Like, I mean, when would you say PCs became a thing and widespread for every household? I mean, it probably
not until 10 years later, probably.
Yeah, I mean, so when you look at it at the time, it wasn't the worst representation of. I mean, obviously, there's things that were wrong that we'll get into, but it wasn't the worst, like, imaginative representation of what goes on in a computing device at the time. I mean, on the most basic level, they were showing you kind of what goes on in a computer. Obviously, people aren't getting put inside of computers, and that'll probably never be a thing, but
we can hope.
That's an argument for a different panel.
one of the Matt, to your point, one of the things I think it's funny about this movie is I'm not a big fan of remakes. I really am not. But I would love it if they would figure out how to like maybe revitalize this movie. Right? I'm not exactly sure how painful that would be for the
See,
fans.
this is how you
Because a
end up
lot
with
of
the new Star Wars characters in the bar. Like, oh, where'd I come from?
But it's like, well, yeah, no, not that kind of thing. But like a lot of the jokes that were in Tron 40 years ago when it came out were really good computer jokes. Like the fact that the little advisor floating over his head was called Bit, and it only said two things, yes and no.
That's right.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. 7 people in the whole country got that joke, probably.
I forgot about that little guy.
Right?
That
I
was
mean, they
funny.
weren't employees of IBM. IBM employees got that joke, and there were 7 of us. There were 7 people outside of that sphere that got that joke. And nowadays a lot more people understand what a bit is and that is really funny and adorable. Back then, I'm like, did anybody get it?
And I think that that's kind of a good point to make, because technology is something that really wasn't as widespread in the general public back in these times when a lot of these movies were really starting to come out. So you're starting to see people having like the fear mongering almost a little bit, like, oh, technology is going to take my job, or technology is going to rise up and kill us all. And I mean, who's to say it still couldn't try nowadays? But it was kind of like that was a big premise on a lot of these things. Look at something like War Games. I mean, that was built around that premise.
Yeah, there is a reason. It's subtle, but the reason why the title of this panel is "Don't Click Accept" is because I think all 3 of these movies are technology fear-mongering movies in a sense. Right? You've got the zombies created by medicine, you've got the virtual reality murdering people, and then you've got lasers turning people into very large pixels and sucking them into a computer system to make them go away because of finances and politics, right? So it's right. So this is all technology and science murder.
Does technology ever get to do anything good in movies? Now that you've brought that up, I'm trying to think, like, has it ever been the good guy in a movie? Like,
I am not sure the answer is yes.
I guess you could take an argument
Ralph,
for like Terminator 2
Ralph
a little bit, but
oh yeah, yep. Ralph breaks the internet.
The internet. So yeah, technology does
see,
that.
that's like the age-old question of, if you push somebody off of a cliff and then you catch them, did you attempt to murder them or save their life? Like, are you the good guy or are you the bad guy? It's like,
yeah, if you are being heroic because you're the one that shot the guy, those cancel each other out. Actually, no, they don't cancel each other out. You shot the guy. Yeah. So yeah, it is.
Ralph ruined everything, and then.
But if you think about it, with most movies, you never have that complete happy from start to beginning. The feel good just gets feeling gooder at the end. There always is a major drop off. There's got to be some sort of a heartbreak, some sort of a, why am I watching this? You're hurting my feelings. You made it better at the end. So
yeah,
nothing is all happiness in any movie. Look at Bambi.
Oh yeah, technology
look
in
what
Bambi.
Technology did in there. Yeah.
Look what technology did there.
This is why you don't let Disney be in charge of technology.
But
no Disney and technology.
But like Eric said, if you think about it, at the time also Tron came out, you also had basically right around the same time you had War Games going on, and neither of those, they were both kind of well, actually they were technology related, but no one had computers in their home at the time. Both were around 82, 83, and the big thing was mainframes. So technically, it's still a bit of a question mark because a lot of people still don't know what mainframes do, and that's basically what Tron was based off of. That's what War Games was based off. It's all mainframe technology.
Yeah, I mean, it was like Resident Evil could have had personal computers in it, but I don't think it did. I think it had what we call thin clients, because in the at least in the first Resident Evil movie and in some of the game, you have essentially a centralized computer system where, because they're all in the same building or in the same campus or whatever, you have hardwire connection between every single, what we would now call a personal computer. They weren't personal computers. They were terminals. There were monitors and there were keyboards and mouses, maybe, and they were all hardwired into the big mamma jamma computer than we'll get to in the after panel once I've seen this movie again. So yeah, so none of these movies have personal computers in them because two of them are too old and one of them isn't set in a place where you would need them. Right.
Definitely
So
no smartphones.
I'd have to go
Say
back
again?
on Resident Evil because I think there was one scene where they like had to go retrieve something from a computer not on the network or something. I don't know. It's been a long time.
The list of movies that we could talk about where just computers, like not technology, like not Jurassic Park, but just computers they just say something and you go, what? If you know anything about computers at all. Skynet from Terminator is one of those. Battlestar Galactica is one of those. The new Battlestar Galactica does that. There's all kinds of examples where you're just there's even a couple of moments in Jurassic Park where in story the humans are idiots about how to use computers. That's not the computer's fault. But there's tons and tons of great examples. I think it's worth saying here for not just Eric, but for also possible other members of our audience that this is a real strong focus on the science part of science fiction. It's one of the reasons why I like science fiction so much, is because science fiction creators, storytellers, will take something that people are worried about and will push it to a limit, generally speaking, to a limit where people get killed and things get eaten, where the monsters eat everybody. But they'll challenge us and go, all right, is this a good idea? Is artificial intelligence a good idea? Is virtual reality a good idea?
Science is the reason that you enjoy science fiction?
It's one of the big reasons.
I thought it was just because you were a dork.
Well, that's this whole panel, isn't it? Couldn't you just call this the dork
Let's
panel?
not alienate the entire viewing audience in one statement.
Yes. The opinions of Eric do not reflect the opinions of Tables of Content or its subsidiaries.
Have your editors put a disclaimer right across the top.
Disclaimer. But they are a welcome change of pace from how self-aggrandizing and patting ourselves on the back we are here at Tables of Content. No, Eric, you're exactly right. It is kind of a contradiction that science fiction has a lot of fans of science fiction are scientists, but the science is famously bad, but not always, but famously bad. But again, not always. So yeah, so there is that challenge. I think a lot of us who are science fiction fans like to yell at the screen and go, that's not how computers work. That's not how DNA recombines. That's not how time travel works, right? Or whatever it is. That's part of the fun.
What's funny is I still watch a lot of Big Bang Theory reruns, and if you want to see where technology actually fits, you watch the show because it's reality. Obviously, they're in the home and they're playing. But when you talk about the things that they're doing with their technology, and you look back and you see just how funny it can be, the way they treat it, the way they talk about it, and even funnier is the way they talk about the same movies that we're about to watch. They talk about different movies and how ridiculous they were and how that could never happen. And then they have a whole episode based on the fact that could never happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It is always enjoyable to me to see people say, okay, if this were a movie, this is how this would happen, but it's not a movie, it's reality, and this is how it's actually going to happen. One of my favorite authors, Jim Butcher, is in a constant state of saying, if this were a movie, but it's not, this is how it really works. Because he's poking fun at his fans and at the genres where you have something like one of the things I was just thinking about with Tron when we were talking about it was, and again, 40 years ago, how big were the pixels when they digitized him with the laser? Weren't the pixels like big enough you could see them? Right. And I'm sitting there going, there's a biologist in the audience going, that's not a single block of human. That's like hundreds of thousands of cells, you morons. It's right. There's always somebody in the audience going, no, that's not how that works. But as my father constantly is reminding me, he likes to make fun of me about some of this stuff. He's constantly reminding me that's not the point of the movie. And I'm like, but it could be.
My wife always has that trouble. There's a certain ability you have to suspend belief in order to watch a lot of science fiction. And she's that person that the whole thing's ruined for her. Like, oh yeah, the pixel's the size of a tennis ball. Like that could never happen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a movie. Just let it go. I know it'll never happen. Just enjoy it.
Yeah. And I am of two minds about this, which is part of me is going, no. And the other part of me is going, look at that explosion. I mean, so I can do both at the same time.
That's the fun of it is, that's why it's science fiction and not science reality, right? I mean, that's the whole point. Is it takes something that people don't really know a lot about or know the bare minimum of, and just turns it into this crazy fun thing that may or may not be true, may or may not happen.
You have to suspend belief because you end up doing what the rest of us do. You watch the first Terminator and you're blown away. You watch the second one and then you're like, why did they just send the first Terminator back to when the second one was there and let them fight it out? You have to kind of, you have to kind of give up a little bit to let the second and the third and the fourth movies come out, or else it all just falls apart.
So why didn't Doc just leave a note from when he was in the Wild West, and we could have just avoided the whole franchise? Or the best example, Indiana Jones didn't even need to be in the movie. It's like
Big Bang Theory.
No,
that goes back to the Big Bang Theory.
That is not correct.
The Big Bang Theory actually had an episode on that, and Amy Farrah Fowler said it. She goes, "Isn't it funny? He was totally useless. Eventually, they would have found it, and blah blah blah." And you have to suspend some belief.
Different panel. We'll cover that somewhere else. Speaking of different panel, we're starting to run out of time here, guys. I really do appreciate the conversation. That's part of the point. Is we're not just talking about these three movies. We're talking about we enjoy movies with really terrible science and technology in them. If they're good movies, we will give a little bit of license on the science and the technology. Anyway, okay, so what I want to do now, since we're starting to run out of time here, is I want to go ahead and start working on what I call paying the bills. I want to remind everybody in our audience that it is the 20th anniversary of Resident Evil, the 30th anniversary of The Lawnmower Man, and the 40th anniversary of Johnny's beloved Tron. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to watch all those three movies with us, and then join us for the after panel, which we will be working on as soon as is realistic. We'll get it up and out. But we want everybody, the four of us and all of you, to watch these movies with us, come back for the after panel. Before we get out of here, I just want to give everybody a chance to make some parting shots. I'm going to start with Eric. Eric, is there anything you want to throw out at the end here before we start to wrap this up?
I mean, I'm kind of excited for Lawnmower Man, the way you guys were talking it up. So we'll see how that one goes based on my expectations.
Excellent. All right, Matt, how about you? Any parting shots?
It is the greatest bad movie you will ever watch in your entire life.
You are a horrible liar.
It is. Oh no! I will not lie to anybody out there. Lawnmower Man is a terrible movie, but it's just one of those things. It's like a train wreck. You just can't stop watching. It's like, and the political correctness isn't quite there. It didn't age great, but it's just still got that campy horribleness. Like, the only thing it's missing is it's just missing a Bruce Campbell cameo. That's the only thing that's really missing from that movie.
God, that would have been great for that movie.
It's B-movie gold.
Johnny, how about you? Last thoughts, parting shots?
Every time we talk about technology movies and having to suspend disbelief, for some reason in my head, the movie Hackers always comes into my head. Not enough bad stuff can be said about that type of movie, but thank God that's not one of the ones in the list, because I really don't want to go back to that. But yeah, they're definitely fun. I think tech movies or any movie with technology, it's always interesting, because even if you're watching it for the first time, there's a little part of you that wonders what it's going to be like now, 20, 30, 40 years. Are people going to watch it? How is it going to age? Is any of it going to come true? Are we going to have flying cars like in Back to the Future? So
yeah, I think that what I'm hoping to find in these movies, I'm not sure, but I'm looking, is to separate out the technology and the computer silliness and see how the storytelling plays out. It has been a while since I've seen any of these movies. I'm looking forward to these and kind of comparing them to each other. And we will do that as soon as is feasible. The four of us are going to go off, watch these three movies, come back, and we will talk more about these movies and their anniversaries and their terrible computer systems. But also, I'm looking forward to Eric's raw, unadulterated response to these three films, because we have kind of put him on the spot. But I am looking forward to him as someone who claims not to be a sci-fi fan going, why do you guys like this stuff? Or or whatever his response is. I'm not betting or predicting. All right, so on that, this is me, Darren M. Bush from Tables of Content. Thank you, everybody, for staying with us and playing along. And this is the part where we're all going to wave goodbye and say thank you. See you later, guys. There we go. This has been a presentation of Tables of Content. What kind of stupid name is that?